I think we still have a long way to go in just building that infra to enable something like a wearable technology to come and become mainstream in everyone's household. Which is why, like, as a leader, I've always been democratic. I feel like, you have to get the inputs of the people who will be impacted from your decisions. Micro guys, nano guys from small villages, and I think there's so much talent out there. So for me, the real India is actually there.
Hi Akshay. First of all, thank you so much for taking time on a weekday. I really appreciate it. And I have been actually meaning to call you on the show since 2021.
Okay.
But obviously it never happened because, I started this primarily after college.
Correct.
So yeah, it's been like, what, 2.5 years since I wanted you on the show. A lot to learn from you. And yeah, looking forward.
Thanks for having me. I think good to see you again.
We've
had an interesting conversation on stage.
Yeah.
And now it's time to take it to a studio and have a conversation.
Right.
So
I'm glad we're doing that, right?
Yeah, thanks for coming down to Schbang and doing this with me. Yeah.
Right. I think the goal of today is to kind of understand you a bit better, understand what kind of drives you. And yeah, I just had a look at the office. It's beautiful, right? What you built. And to kind of understand how you went about that, how you built that so fast, and what drives you basically.
Okay.
So to start with that, I would just like to know a bit more about your childhood.
Okay.
How it was like for you, and yeah, just
sure. So I mean, born and brought up in Bombay itself. Erstwhile Bombay, now Mumbai as we call it. South Bombay kid, typical South Bombay kid as we call it. Did my schooling here, did my college here as well. I went to HR college, which is in Churchgate. I did my Bachelor of Management Studies. Growing up, I was always this nerdy kid who was, very focused on studies. I loved playing sport. I used to play a lot of tennis, cricket back in the day. I was one of those inquisitive kids who would try and do everything possible, everything that came my way. So I think growing up, I was always like an opportunist, trying to find the right opportunity to do something different, to learn something different. Then in college, I was among the first. I was the only kid in my class to do both finance and marketing. We were 120 kids, but I was only the kid who did both marketing and finance, gave my exams in both. Of course, I had to specialize finally in one, which I did finance finally in that, and scored my least marks in finance also. But I think those 3 years of, my BMS, Bachelor of Management Studies, I learned how to work in teams. I learned leadership. I learned presentation skills. I enjoyed speaking in front of public as well. I used to lead a lot of these clubs in college. I used to do all the extracurriculars, a lot of drama. I used to be on stage all the time. So I used to enjoy being, everywhere basically. And I used to keep thinking that, I'm just 18, I'm just 19, I'm just 20. So let me do as much as I can. Because you never know where those learnings can actually come and use. And I think now today I'm 34, and I think a lot of what those formative years actually gave me, I can see myself implementing today in my leadership life as a co-founder at Schbang. So yeah, I think my childhood was simple. I would like to call it that way, but I was inquisitive. I learned a lot. I tried to pick up on things as I went along, and yeah, I think that's what has sort of shaped me into what I am today. Yeah.
Right. And how big a part of that was college for you? Because again, as you said, finance, marketing, I mean, now we realize it can go hand in hand, but it might be a dicey choice for some.
Yeah.
So how much do you think a role college played in that, and how did you decide what's for you?
Yeah. So I think when I was in college, it was like back in 2000 and, like 10, 11, 12, around that time, right? So marketing was not digital. We used to do like a lot of, traditional marketing, offline marketing is what we were learning in class, rural marketing. And there was not a concept of, having a Facebook page or like a Facebook handle. Of course, I'm saying Facebook because Facebook became the first big platform that we all sort of got into along with Twitter back in the day, right? So marketing was fairly simple. It was about flyers, about danglers, about making a good presentation. It was about having a good offline ad, about having a nice, hoarding, for example, making a nice television commercial. But I enjoyed that process of creation. I enjoyed the process of talking to consumers, understanding an insight, getting down to, what's the need gap in the consumer's life, then trying to find a nice, quirky one line, like a caption. So I actually enjoyed that process. But I also knew that marketing came a lot naturally to me because all of the club work I would do, all these, events, there was a lot of marketing involved there, right? You go and get sponsorships and, you know that as well, right? Like go and beg for money, go and do like, campaigning inside the college, getting kids to come and, be a part of your club. So I think marketing came very naturally to me, but I felt like if I don't enjoy or if I don't start learning finance, I'll never sort of learn it when I become older.
Like a hard skill to have.
Yeah, like,
Okay.
because again, if I trace back to my childhood as well, like I come from a family of entrepreneurs, so like a lot of public listed companies in my family. Many people, all my uncles, all have like big companies. So I've always grown up. My dad's an entrepreneur himself for the past 41 years, right? So I've always grown up in a family of entrepreneurs. So I always knew that irrespective whatever I do, I don't want to work under somebody, and I always want to have something of my own, because I've always seen that kind of a life, right? Them having big companies, 1,000 people working under them. So I was like, I aspire to have that at some point in time. And that's why, like, in college, I felt like, if I don't understand and do finance, it'll be difficult for me to also become a co-founder or a founder of a company, because eventually you need to have a grip on numbers, very importantly. How much ever you might enjoy the marketing side and the creative side, eventually somewhere numbers play an important role in being a founder of a company, right? So that's why I thought, okay, I'll do finance as my final specialization, which is why I also found a job as a financial analyst right after college, in this company called Tres Vista. I worked as an analyst for 6 months. Didn't enjoy it one bit because of the amount of numbers I had to crunch and the longing that I had for marketing at that point in time. But I think those 6 months of also finance as working as an analyst sort of shaped my future. And I feel like I owe a lot of what I know today to those 6 months as well, even though that was 14 years ago. But a lot of the life skills I learned about balance sheets, P&Ls, cash flows, how to read valuations, I think helped me today, so many years down the line. So, so I think my one big takeout is that, you never know how big or small, an experience can actually help you somewhere in life. And I think, again, as I was saying, like, all of these smaller things have shaped me into what I am today.
Do you still think that, like, as a 18-year-old, 19-year-old, your motto should be to go out and do as many things as you can?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Like, I still enjoy my photography. I still go on my weekends. I do baby shoots. I do wildlife shoots. I do street photography.
Your Instagram is beautiful.
You can't. I don't think you should stop learning. I think the day you stop learning is the day you're dead, right? Basically, that's how you say it, right? So I think pick up on new things. Like, I'm always learning online. I'm always picking up on a new skill. I'm always paying for a new Udemy course, for example. I'm paying for a new course and doing like a 6-month certification. I'm always doing that. So I think that, there's so much to learn in the world, right? Why bucket yourself into just one sort of, one dimension and then ignore the rest? Even if I don't actually utilize those skills in something, just knowing I think is very important from a worldview standpoint. So I think just keep learning, be a constant learner. And I also teach a lot. So I teach quite a bit. I teach like 10 hours a month on average. So I learn from the students as well, right? Just picking up on their questions, picking up on their cultures, picking up on their backgrounds is somewhere something I'm imbibing from them as well. So I think, just be a constant learner is what I would say.
I would talk more about you teaching part, the you teaching part. But what I was curious about is you graduate, you start work at a finance company, and in 6 months you're working at a marketing agency.
Correct.
How was that experience for you in terms of like what you liked, what you didn't like? And after that, what kind of helped you formulate your core insight for starting Schbang from that experience?
Sure. So, fortunately, I knew all the 4 founders of my previous agency. So I've known them from school, from college. They were all my seniors from back in the day, right? So I've always seen them, heard of them, seen what they've been up to, and seen that company sort of grow from a small print making t-shirt kind of an agency to then creating something in the digital space, right? So I've always known them. So I said, okay, fine, if I'm moving out of my finance job, maybe I can join a growing marketing company, right? And when I joined them, like I remember this was like during Diwali, like I quit my job on a Friday, and on the next Monday I started my marketing job, right? And it was like a knee-jerk reaction in a way where I said, okay, fine, I'm just going to do this. I'm getting maybe like 1,000 rupees more than what I'm getting from the previous job, and that's a lot of money for me. Like, I'm just going to go and do this new job, right? And I was excited because I missed the marketing side of the world as well. And I think I was lucky because when I joined that company, digital was still very nascent in India as a country, and Facebook that time had just sort of launched We all were making our Facebook profiles, and it was one of those platforms that people were still trying to understand, saying, what is happening here? Can we see what's happening? Twitter was there. We all had our Twitter handles, so we used to tweet every now and then. But I think no one understood how to market a brand or a product on these platforms. So of course we used to look towards the West to get, a lot of inspiration for campaigns being run there, or like brands who are good benchmarks, or the kind of content being made over there. I think that we were among the first few agencies in the country who were independent, who started sort of, picking up on the skills that are required for digital marketing. So we had like, designers, we had content writers, we had a couple of in-house guys who could design simple websites, for example. And I think in those formative years, from that 2010 to 2012 is when I spent my first 2 years in the Bombay office here. And within like a year, I was 21 that time. Within a year, I had about 30 people reporting into me. Within 2 years, I had about 45 people reporting into me in Bombay. Then, and I think digital really picked up at that point in time. So suddenly brands were like, what is the digital marketing? Tell us, how do we come on to it?
They wanted to get in.
They wanted to get in. Like everyone was like, okay, I want to be the first mover in my category. Like, and we were those young kids like on the block who just went in shorts and chappals and sort of tried to sell campaigns to big companies like L'Oreal and these guys, and they were like, let's do it, let's give it a shot, let's see what happens, right? And I think they were kind enough to trust a bunch of kids, with their social media platforms and to make content and to make a website or whatever. But I think then it's in those 2-3 years that digital really started picking up quite a bit, and I felt like, okay, now it's time to move on and do an MBA, like, like every other typical, Indian kid, right? I'm 23 now.
Business graduate especially.
Yeah, I'm 23. I want to go and do an MBA, and, just like, I'm done. That's when I got the opportunity to actually go to Delhi and run the Delhi operations for this agency as well. And, I think what the founders saw in me was that I had grown a team. I was able to scale a team. I was able to manage clients well. I was able to do some award-winning work in the Indian context. So they said, you know what, put a stop on your MBA. Why don't you actually go and head the Delhi operations for us? What's the worst that can happen, right? Like, let's give it a shot. And because, of course, I had the comfort of knowing them for so many years as friends, they were like, you know what, just go. And I didn't have a stake in the company. I was not, a co-founder. I was just like a normal employee, right? I said, honestly, what's the worst that can happen? If nothing else, I'll get an MBA and come back, right? Like, I'll learn on the job, get my 1 year of MBA at this agency and come back to Bombay and do something else, right? But I think it's when I moved first time to Delhi, completely alone, have no friends over there. Actually, not in Delhi, I was in Gurgaon. So even Gurgaon was a different ball game from Delhi, if you ask me. But, living an alone lifestyle, having to build from scratch, literally having to do everything from admin work to HR work to business development to client servicing. I think that 1.5 years in Delhi really shaped me into who I am today. I think I got like a lot of learnings from there, which gave me the confidence to say, okay, fine, now I think I'm ready to start my own agency as well. But yeah, I think those 2 years, 18 months roughly that I spent in Gurgaon, really pushed me to come out of my comfort zone and really understand how a business is created right from ground up. Of course, having the backing of a larger team in Bombay, but coming to a new city altogether and starting afresh was challenging.
So you could take some risks on behalf of the company.
Yeah, because I had the comfort that, okay, fine, they told me it's okay if you fail, but at least go and do it, go and try it, right? So I had that cushion, say, okay, fine, go and do it, go and try it, then we'll see from there. And I thoroughly enjoyed my time there. Of course, living an alone life is difficult, and all the kind of stuff. I'd never cooked on my own, so I had to learn all the basic stuff. But I think if I hadn't done it in those when I was 24, 23 in that age, I probably wouldn't have again taken that kind of a risk later on in life, right? Exactly. So I think it comes back to my previous point that I've tried to take up as many opportunities that have come my way, try to say no to almost none of them, if it makes sense to me and if it's within my reason to be also. But I feel like if I hadn't done that, if I hadn't taken up the opportunity back at that time, probably Schbang wouldn't have happened for me either. So yeah, I got a lot of learnings from that 18 month stint in Gurgaon. Yeah.
Right. And after that, you start your company.
Yeah, so 2014 November, December end is when I came back, and 2015 Jan is when we started Schbang. Three of
Right.
us had moved out of the company and we started Schbang
Right.
together. Yeah.
Was that hard, like the initial few months, getting clients, setting up office, admin work, whatever? How was that like?
So I would say it was a lot simpler than my previous stint because had already been through that rut once. We'd already built enough of clientele. We had enough of friends and family in the industry who could sort of help us. We had enough colleagues who had moved to other agencies, to other brands, who were happy to come and collaborate with us. Also, like when we were moving out, some of the core team members also moved with us. So we already had like a core of about 8 to 10 people who moved with us on day one.
Right.
So literally we had a team but no work. We had no business but we had a team. We had a 10,000 square foot office also with almost no work at all. But I think that just gave us the confidence that once you have a team, now to go out and build is where the fun actually was. Again, thanks to our connects with the industry, it was not difficult to open doors. We did start off with a small few projects. One of our first clients was Finolex Pipes.
Right.
They're actually a family business run by my aunt and uncle. So they gave us a shot saying, you know what, take this on, do it, So I think we were grateful to have family backing us up in some form or the other, whatever it may be. Then of course that gave us a couple of more opportunities. Our first big group was Godrej, when we got a chance to pitch to one of the brands under
This was
Godrej
2015
Consumer.
or
2015,
Okay.
early 2015. Actually, one of our ex-colleagues from the previous agency had moved to Godrej, and she said, you know what, we are opening up a pitch for agencies, so just come and pitch.
Right.
And that went our way. We got into the group, and then once you're in the group, then you can get more brands from there as well. So I think that catapulted us into like a different trajectory, because then we got Godrej as a client, and that's a big name to have on your
You have
roster.
leverage now.
Yeah, and so I mean, from doing like social media to like email marketing to like websites, then of course the needs of the client kept evolving. So like we want video, we want photo shoots. So we kept adding on from there, which we can talk about more as we go along. But the first few months, of course, were difficult. Entering an office, having a big space with no one occupying the seats can be a little discomforting sometimes. But you keep questioning, saying, okay, when will we close the client? Will the money come in on time? The self-doubt keeps coming in, and imposter syndrome is a thing,
Right.
which is what I believe. But touch wood, I think it all worked out eventually. A couple of good campaigns helped put us on the map also at that point in time, and people were like, who's this young agency again, Schbang, and young, cool, quirky word as well, bring the whole shebang. So it became like a thing, and people were like, okay, come and pitch to us. That's when the doors started opening up quite a bit, and then we pitched to everyone like who sort of called us. And then, I think the rest is history, as we say.
Right. And it's like that Steve Jobs quote, you can only connect the dots looking backwards.
Yeah.
I think that perfectly sums up what you had.
Yeah. I think when you're in it, you don't really fret so much, but when you look back and say, okay, now a lot has happened, a lot has transpired, right? But like when you're in it, you don't see it to be that way, right?
But you're sprinting.
Yeah,
along the way.
you're sprinting along the way. You're hustling along the way. Something's keeping you pushing up every morning, waking up at 9 o'clock or 8:30 a.m. and saying, you know what, I'm going to go to office and like I'm going to kill it, right? Like that hustle is real. Everyone will say, okay, fine, you should not be working 70 hours a week, and all that kind of debates can happen. But I mean, in the formative years, there's no other option, right? This is your only thing. This is your baby, right? So you're going to give it your everything to make sure it survives and it grows, because you've invested time, you've invested money, and we'd all sort of borrowed money from our fathers and put in like a lot of money, a lot of capital into growing such a large space, actually 10,000 square feet space, which can seat 350 people, but you were 20 people in the office, right? So you can imagine that there's so much space, you can play a cricket match inside there, but there's no business, right? So I think that's the push that you get. That's the stick which wakes you up every morning, saying, get out of bed and sort of go.
You
and
had
kill
no
it.
other option. You had to win.
You had to win. Yeah. And again, we gave ourselves 3 years, saying, let's see how this goes. If it works out, great. If nothing else, at least we'll recover our capital and move out. Nothing else.
Right. Now, about that, you scaled pretty fast, like very fast. And one thing about the agency business, as far as I could research about, is that with scale comes a bit of compromise, maybe on the quality side, maybe on choosing a different type of clientele than you would want to, compromising on that. How do you think you have went around managing that? And what are some of the core hypotheses you have stuck to regardless of the scale?
Yeah. So I feel like, of course, right in the beginning, we were able to sort of put our hands and legs into everything that's been happening in the company, because the team is small, number of people are less, number of brands are less. So in the formative couple of years, literally you can oversee every creative that's going out, right? Because you're there, you're around office, you can go to everyone and go and see what's happening. But I think as we've scaled up, of course, as you mentioned, that quality tends to get compromised quite a bit. But I think any successful company today has to have set processes which are followed by the leadership. I think we're very fortunate to have a very strong second line of people as well, which includes our vice presidents, our head of departments, who come with experience, who come with enough of knowledge when it comes to team building, when it comes to team training, honing, servicing clients, building relationships. What we were able to do is create the processes, create structures for them to imbibe and then sort of grow from.
Right.
But again, creating those processes took time, because you need to make it foolproof. You got to keep testing it out. You got to like build and learn. You got to keep innovating, because not all processes are readily available, in a Word document online, right? You got to like literally find what process works for you, what kind of flow of information works in the company as well. So then, of course, with time, of course, we've learned what works and what doesn't work, and we've relied a lot on technology as well to help us sort of create these systems. Like for example, now we only use Zoho. So Zoho, right from our LMS to our HRMS to our accounting, Zoho Books, everything is sort of built out on Zoho.
Right.
On your phone, click of a button, people have access to information. We have something called a Schbang Wiki, which is a Wikipedia for everything Schbang.
Okay.
So literally, like, if you are first day at Schbang, just go and search for what you want, formats, templates, presentations, videos, anything you want about the company is available for you,
Right.
sort of free of cost on this platform, and which is updated frequently with more and more data there. We have something called the Schbang Academy as well, which runs frequent trainings, at least 10 to 12 trainings every month for different teams to teach them new things, upskilling them. Again, our VPs can come and ask our academy team, say, what, I think my team requires XYZ training this month. Can you please orchestrate that? We'll get that done. So it's taken us time to figure out these things, but now that we're 1,200 people across India, it's only this tech and these processes that can actually get us to the next, 1,200 more after this.
That company culture building takes quite some time and meticulous effort.
Absolutely.
Right?
I think company culture is a make or break, as I keep saying it. Right? It's like, the moment culture breaks in the company, you're bound to lose people, you're bound to lose clients. And upholding your culture is very important. I mean, while if you actually walk around Schbang, you'll see we have no cabins. Right?
Yeah,
everyone sits in the open. I sit in the open. I'm always accessible. So that's one of our cultural cues, that transparency, openness, that's a part of the culture, and that has to be demonstrated by the founders, saying that I'm here, I'm available, come talk to me. Right? I'm not going to say knock on the door, take an appointment. No, I'm sitting right here with you, like, come chat with me, I'm having lunch, come sit with me, right? So there are small things that go a long way.
You set the benchmark. It starts
and
with
you have to set the benchmarks. It has to come from the founder or from the top at least.
Right.
And I think people are smart enough to observe and learn and then build from there also. While of course we do put our vision and mission statements and all these different things on the wall. You'll talk about those things in town halls as well. But I think some of these cultural cues are unsaid. They're felt more than seen. And you can feel when you're entering a space which is respecting you, which is giving you an opportunity to grow, for example, or is valuing you as an employee. So I think that comes from the culture, and if that breaks, you're going to lose a lot. Yeah.
Right. My follow-up to that is about your personal leadership style, right? So you became a first-time manager, I think, pretty early on in your career.
Yeah, 21.
Right.
Yeah.
And after that, it's been an upward trajectory of managing more and more people.
Yeah.
So what all changed in that journey? What all did you learn? What do you think your management style is as of now? And how has that kind of evolved over time?
I think my management style has not evolved per se. It's probably been the same, which is being extremely democratic. Like I really, I'm not the kind of person who will say this is my way or the highway. It has to be done this way. I believe, like as I was saying, like I enjoy learning. So I would rather get perspectives from other people, because again, what I think is right might not be right for everybody. And I think, again, you're working in a people's business, right? It's human capital. People are unique. People come with their own perceptions, biases, backgrounds, cultures, and India, as we say, is like India has many smaller Indias within one India.
Right.
So if you don't get different perspectives, you're bound to go wrong at some point in time. Which is why, like, as a leader, I've always been democratic. I feel like, you have to get the inputs of the people who will be impacted from your decisions. Of course, you can't go and ask 1,000 people saying, "Hey, tell me what we should do today."
Right.
But you create communities of smaller groups, who can sort of become the kind of people who you can bounce off ideas from, who you can get perspectives from, because eventually they might be the ones who are working directly with the lowest common denominator, who's the junior most guy in the office. So at the top, sometimes you might not have visibility of what's happening at the bottom.
Right.
While when we don't like to be seen as too hierarchical, but yeah, at some point in time you need hierarchy in the company. But it's at different levels. Everybody has different thought processes, has different perceptions, has different problems they're facing.
The priorities are different.
The priorities are different as well, right? Motivations are different. They value something else from somebody else who may be at the top. So till you don't get that, you'll never make the right decisions. I think I've always tried to be democratic. Sometimes you do have to put your foot down, of course, but I'm saying, to cleanly put it, yeah, I like to get inputs from the team before taking anything drastic, in that sense.
Right. And the fact that you can trust your team with that shows what you're built. Right.
Yeah.
So my question on that is, do you think a person can be born creative? Like, is creativity inborn, or can it be cultivated?
I think the guys who are born, I think the people who are born with creativity, of course, excel a lot quicker.
Yeah.
But creativity can surely be learned for sure. Like, I think it can be picked up with time. It's a function of you being interested in it, right? Like, I mean, you can literally watch what brands are doing. You can go and learn something in a marketing course, for example, understand how case studies are actually built out. I think you can be creative by learning the tricks. But if you're born with it, of course, you'll excel a lot faster, because it just comes naturally to you, right? Like, for example, I can't write a script, but can I tell a good copy from a bad copy? Yes, maybe not. Maybe I will. So am I the best creative guy in the room? Probably not. But have I been able to learn with time what works and what doesn't work? Absolutely. So again, it's taken like 13 years for me to be in the industry to really know what is good and what is bad. But am I the best creative copywriter? Probably not. So I can give my example. I was not born creative, but of course, I've cultivated that by being interested in things to do with creativity or marketing or photography, which are all in the creative spheres, basically.
So you develop an eye for it.
You develop an eye for it. I think you need to have the interest. Till you don't really put your head down and focus on it, it's not going to come. Like, it's like learning numbers, right? Like, you need to enjoy numbers. You got to like tell a story from a number as well. So now when I see numbers on a balance sheet, like, I can creatively tell a story. Like, it's really using numbers, but say a nice story around it with a marketing, jazz to it. Now, so when I go and talk to, like, even say CEOs or CMOs or co-founders of other companies, when they explain to me what are their company numbers, I can creatively form a narrative, which sort of becomes a marketing campaign, a marketing plan, by identifying what the need gaps in those numbers actually are. So, it's, I think it can be learned for sure. Yeah.
I'm trying to picture this in a timeline. So that happens. When do you think you scaled at a very decent stage where you felt comfortable? Was it 2018-ish?
Yeah, I think so. Just before pandemic, we were about 300 people.
2019.
1920 early, we were about 300 people across the 3 cities. 2 cities actually, Mumbai and Bangalore. Delhi had not yet sort of started. But it's post-pandemic is when we sort of 3x the team. So today we're 1,200 people in 3.5 years since the pandemic.
The space really picked up during the pandemic, right?
Yeah, I think, unfortunately the pandemic happened, but we were grateful that, brands realized the importance of digital overall. Money's moved from offline to online almost overnight, and that is something that we then capitalized on. We were opportunistic there as well, saying that let's not say no to any work that comes away. While of course the offices were empty, everybody's working from home. That was a challenge in itself, moving everyone's computers, laptops to their own cities. But we said, let's not say no to any work. Let's just sort of ride the wave and grow as much as we can. I think the last 2.5 3 years have been where we really picked up on our overall revenues. Of course, talent is difficult to then retain in these COVID times. People are demotivated. People are, they're like, okay, I want to do something else now. Some people are double hatting, doing double jobs. You don't know what's happening at home, right? So that, of course, retaining people became a big challenge for us as well, because we had to hire a lot of people to service the requirements coming in, and that, of course, had like a large impact on the bottom lines as well.
Definitely.
So while, of course, we grew, top line was great, but bottom lines took a hit eventually, which is something now as a team we're sort of trying to clean up. But yeah, those 3 years were great on a top line acquisition of clients, but now I think it's more about the discipline of trying to figure out how do we now just optimize and consolidate what we have.
Right. So you basically carved out a very good name for yourself during that time.
Yeah.
Right. So okay, so now you're in this position. Schbang is pretty well established. So where does your angel investing journey begin? How does it start? And what is like your core hypothesis behind investing in companies?
Yeah. So I started investing in startups back in 2021.
Okay.
And this was purely from the perspective of diversification. And this is again when like a lot of money was getting pumped into India, like that there was no funding winter at all.
This is early 2021.
Yeah. It's like money was flush, like, a lot of maybe Chinese money was coming into the country, Middle Eastern money coming into the country. So a lot of startups around me, and because I'm a part of the ecosystem, I hear of so many different ideas, so many different entrepreneurs coming and saying, I'd love to connect with you on LinkedIn, would love to get your perspective. And it's like the typical Shark Tank phenomena, right? Like you're seeing, other, companies getting funding in different parts of the world. And I'm thinking like, we are still bootstrapped. We've not gone through the typical VC funding round. So I was like, the only way I can learn about the startup space and the ecosystem of funding is if I actually start investing in startups as well, because I get to meet new young founders, I get to see new business models, new ideas. And that's when I joined a couple of angel groups, like networks basically, and every weekend we'd have like a demo day happening. So I'd be talking to like a new founder, understanding different models. I must have spoken to about 30-40 different founders before I found, okay, this seems like a good idea. So I invested in this company called Flutter, which is it's a multilingual dating app actually. So I really like the concept, because for me, this India, the new age India, the Bharat as we call it, is the one who's growing. A lot of people who are non-English speaking also want to come onto dating apps, but we typically have your Tinders and Bumble and these different apps, right? So this app was focused primarily on the new age India, which is the non-English speaking population. And I was like, this is a great thing, because that's where the India of tomorrow is moving towards. If I can be a part of that story, it'll be probably good. So again, it's not like I'm putting copious amounts of money in these companies. I'm putting like a very, very small check in them, but it's more about saying, how can I just learn from these founders and be a part of that process of how they're raising funds, and just like, again, learn what they are doing. Right, I'm guessing their pressures are very different from the pressure I have, because I'm bootstrapped. We don't have like investor pressure on top of us, right? But so I thought maybe if I can just be a part of those conversations, it'll help me learn different business models, different business plans, for example. And now I've of course invested in a couple of other industries which are more in the food space. So anything which is non-competing with Schbang is something I've tried to get into. Right. So like dating app or like the food. And yeah, like I've not been very active in the past year, if you ask me. I think in 21, 22 is when I invested in a few startups, but now in the past year and a half, I've not invested in too many, because
last year was a bit dry for startups as well.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And I didn't even see something worthwhile come my way. Honestly, so I was like, you know what, I'll just rather put money in the equity markets, because there's a big growth there as well, potentially. And I don't know when I'll ever get an exit from any of these startups. So I don't know when I'll realize any of their money. So I said, okay, okay, now I've put whatever I've put in those startups. Now let me invest more in the equity markets, because equity is, we know how India is growing right now. So I said, I'll do that, yeah.
About that, you like this was kind of like market validation for you. You see what works, what's not working. How do you think the space is changing? Like you deal with everything digital, you're very sound in that. Let's take something like the Apple Vision Pro, for example. Right now, not mainstream at all, totally not. But has pretty good potential, maybe way better than anything else that has happened in the past. Do you think more of maybe disruption like this can or will come to India in the next 5-10 years? And if so, are we optimizing for that from the marketing side of things?
Yeah. So I think India is a very price sensitive market, right? I feel like wearable technology nowadays at this current juncture is very expensive, right? To put that in the hands of every Indian is improbable, is what I would think, right? Wishful thinking, of course, maybe like your Geos of the world maybe come up with something really, economical and cheap in that sense. But I think India still has such a long way to go just at the fundamental foundation of data usage, data coverage. 5G is still not 5G, in the purest sense. I think we still have a long way to go in just building that infra to enable something like a wearable technology to come and become mainstream in everyone's household. Right? There was a fad of the metaverse, right? We all said, okay, fine, we're going to have this fancy Oculus and we're going to be walking around and doing Zoom meetings on our metaverse. It
didn't happen.
Didn't happen, right? Some of the biggest metaverse platforms went from having millions of daily active users down to 30 and 25 people as active users on a monthly basis, right? So it tells you that when you don't have the infrastructure of wearable technology, that entire experience goes for a toss. So I think for us, I'm still keen on seeing how we can utilize the power of the smartphone today to still harness a lot of what is possible in the future to come for us. And it might not be a wearable technology per se. It could be, of course, we have connected TVs, we have smartwatches, but I think just a lot more IoT in that sense could also be quite exciting, where health tracking has become a big thing, fintech has become a big thing as well. But I feel like still, like, our internet speeds are still not optimized to give us the right kind of opportunities for video to stream at the right kind of speed, or to play games at the right kind of speed we want, the kind of the bandwidth we need. So I think we still have some headroom there to catch up with the West. But maybe in the next 5-7 years, I think that should be solved for, and then maybe we'll see if someone's able to come up with cheaper wearable technologies, in the country. Right now, I'm more keen on seeing like how our other multilingual platforms start coming, like a Mall, Staccato, ShareChat. Big opportunity there as well, right? Content is only getting more and more evolved with time. I'm keen on seeing how content evolves into multiple languages in multiple regions as well. I'm keen on seeing how creators move from a typical celebrity category A macro creators to becoming your smaller micro guys, nano guys from small villages. And I think there's so much talent out there. So for me, the real India is actually there, and I'm keen on seeing how that starts coming into the mainstreams as compared to your wearable technologies or whatever else.
Yeah, that's definitely not the future we are. That's very improbable for us, right?
Yeah.
But what do you think, like looking like further from now, might be the next big thing that is in the making and is a culmination of a lot of things, but in hindsight we are missing the point? But what do you think can be the next big thing that is shaping up to be?
At one point in time, I would have said blockchain is a big thing. Like I would have said, okay, fine, somewhere everything is going to converge into like a blockchain or like a smart contract. But I'm seeing that is somewhere losing its charm as well. I think, unfortunately, blockchain has been branded more to be a cryptocurrency, and people don't understand the difference between both of them. So I maybe like a year and a half back, I would have said blockchain, but I'm going to go back to something which is much more simple. What I said earlier is that I'm still keen on seeing how content is driven through different formats, through different languages, from different parts of the country. And I think that's where the big growth is actually going to come from.
Like, do you think something like a regional LLM per se? I just forgot the name of the company. They're building one for India. So something like that picks up a lot in the next decade.
Yeah, I mean, like a regional chat GPT, right? In a way. Yeah. What the guy from Ola is building out, right? Yeah, absolutely. I think something in the AI space potentially has a big market as well. Especially, we as Indians, majority of India still cannot speak well, cannot write well. So I think maybe AI can play a big role in that as well, in conversation driving, in creation of content as well. I think AI has a big opportunity, and the good thing is that in India, we have the talent to actually build AI at a fraction of the cost, for example. In fact, today I met someone who's building out an end-to-end AI optimization tool for all campaigns put together. The AI itself will tell you what to do. He's like literally, you won't need half of your team going forward, which is scary to like let off half your team. But he's like, my AI will tell you exactly what ad to optimize, at what point in time, what creative is not working well, what caption to change. And this is just fed in through data,
Right.
and the AI is able to sort of gauge and learn and sort of build its own intelligence from there.
And that will be way more accurate than human, intuition.
Yeah, he said right now his accuracy rate is 78%, which is drastically above industry average.
Right.
So I'm looking forward to like testing it out and seeing what he has in mind or what he's actually building out. But yeah, I think if AI can, and I keep saying this, that AI will not take away your job, but if you cannot embrace AI, the chance of you losing your job is pretty high. So you need to at least be open to using AI in some form or the other in your daily life. Could
Like
be
I actually know people, this
yeah.
exact argument that they
Yeah.
are hesitant. It's like an ego problem for them. They're like, no, I'm better than ChatGPT. Let me stick to what I do best. So, I mean,
Yeah,
they
yeah.
lose out in the
Yeah,
end.
so I think you need to just embrace the AI, if nothing else, because it'll make you a little bit more efficient, a bit more, quicker with your work. Of course, cost saving is there for sure. But yeah, I think something in the AI space could really dramatically change the way India sort of,
Right.
consumes and creates content. Yeah.
Right. Just one more thing I wanted to ask you is about your mentoring journey. So I couldn't get to the depth of it, but I know you mentor a lot of students on a lot of things.
Yeah.
And you briefly mentioned that in the last time we met.
Yeah.
So how did that start? How is that going? And how does an average interaction with, for example, a student look like on your schedule?
Yeah. So I think why I started mentoring students is just so I can learn from them, as I was saying earlier, right? Like I felt like if I don't understand the pulse of this new Gen Alpha, Gen Z, I'll be redundant very, very soon. So I started teaching about 6 years ago with the intention of just interacting with students, because eventually these students become potential employees at Schbang as well, right? So I said, the more I can interact with them, the more I understand the pulse of them, the easier it is for me to actually find the right kind of talent and get them to Schbang. So now it's been about 6 years. I've probably trained about 5,000 kids in the past 6 years. But typically when someone writes to me, like, of course, now I don't have time to sit and mentor every single person because it's time consuming and
Right.
I find myself repeating the same thing again and again multiple times. So I keep thinking, okay, I just make like 5 videos and send it to everyone who asks me the same questions. But
You want to build a course?
maybe I could at some point in time. But no, I feel like I try meeting at least 2 different founders, co-founders, or like even students.
Right.
So every week. So I try blocking at least 2 hours every week to meet 2 different people, irrespective. So again, because I'm fairly big on LinkedIn, people write to me on my inbox saying, we'd love to chat with you, we'd love to catch up with you,
Right.
whatever. Even this guy who I just met right now, he came saying, mentor me a bit, tell me how do I scale up my company. So I think that way I also get to learn get to see different ideas that's out there, what are the people building as well. So I enjoy just meeting, students with the intention of just imparting whatever I know and then also hearing back from them. And yeah, it's a designated 2 hours every week. I try meeting 2 different people as much as I can, just with the intention of sharing and learning from them.
Right. I also think a lot of people would be interested in
Yeah.
reaching out to you. So LinkedIn is the way to go.
Well, I mean, LinkedIn is my platform of preference, or even Instagram for that matter. So like you can reach out to me there. I'll try and respond. I mean, I get a lot of messages on LinkedIn every single day. So it's typically is me responding a little bit late in the day, but I'll try making some time if it's someone genuinely who has a genuine question. I typically ask them saying what's the agenda of the talk, so that I also know what I'm getting myself into. Of course, nowadays I prefer meeting with more founders and co-founders as compared to students, because I anyway teach. So I teach students on a monthly basis, but when I'm doing a meeting, I prefer meeting with founders so that even I'm learning something from them. Then even I come back with my questions to them. So I'll be like, okay, you asked me 10 questions, I have 3 questions for you, like, that kind of a thing. So it's a good way of networking is what I believe. Yeah.
Right.
And your network is a net worth, as we say it.
Lastly, I just want to know, I like from what I understand talking to you, you kind of give off like you're a very benevolent kind of a person. So I just want to know, apart from the commercial success side of things, if that's taken away, what drives you? What would you still be doing if commercial success wasn't a thing?
I would be a wildlife photographer.
Right.
And that pays nothing. It's only an expense because you buy some expensive cameras
expensive
and
gear.
very expensive gear all the time. I would like to live in a jungle and just do my safaris and go and do wildlife photography if I didn't have to pay my bills, of course. But I enjoy photography actually. That's something I really pursue with a lot of passion. In fact, over the weekends, I pursue baby photography.
Right.
I do shoot quite a bit, and wildlife becomes my way of disconnecting from the digital world and spending 4 days in the jungle every few months. I'm going now in the next couple of weeks as well. So if commercials aside, I'll probably do something in the travel and wildlife space. Yeah.
Yeah. That sums it up pretty much.
Yeah.
I just have like 10 more questions for you, but it's a rapid fire.
Okay.
So we keep the answer short,
Yeah.
and whatever the first thing comes into mind, we go at it.
Okay.
Okay. Worst business advice you ever received?
Don't see what competition is up to.
Damn. Okay. What's an outdated sales tactic that should be put to rest, which you hate personally?
Cold calling.
Calling or?
Cold calling.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. A marketing myth that drives you crazy?
The marketing is only about advertising.
Okay. Can I actually go a bit deep into that?
Yeah. So if I were to just in one line explain what marketing is how you can get the product from point A, which is from point of production, to the end consumer. It's the entire process of marketing.
Right.
So advertising is just one small part of that. Your sales, all your promotions, everything is a part of the entire marketing journey, right? So people just assume that a marketing journey is just about the ad you're creating, which is not true. So that's a big myth, basically. Yeah.
Right. What kept you up at night during Schbang's early days?
The fact that I had nothing else, this is the only baby I had. So yeah.
Right. If you had a magic wand that could fix anything, what would you want to fix?
The Gen Z mindset, man. Like I wish I could understand Gen Zs.
Like to tap into their minds or to like understand what drives them?
To understand what motivates them, very honestly.
Okay.
It's a tough sub-segment of the audience to sort of understand nowadays.
Yeah.
Complicated, yeah.
I think the key to that is kind of laziness, how to get the most without doing anything.
Yeah.
I think that kind of sums it up.
Yeah.
I can attest for that.
Which is why I teach. So I try to understand from students, like, what's in your mind, right? Like, what makes you motivated? Like, why have you come to class today? You're just 19, but why have you come to class today? Like,
Right.
is it the thing that, okay, fine, if I impress Mr. Gurnani, I'll get a job at Schbang, or is it something else which is bigger than that, right?
Yeah.
So I think that the Gen Z mindset is something I try to get into, if I could. Yeah.
Makes sense. What's one service you haven't offered yet or, personally tried out yet at Schbang, but you would love to in the future?
I think something in the AI space. We've not yet built out like an AI team internally. We've not built out a CGI team, for example. We do small bits of that, but I think that has potential over there also. But something in AI for sure, I think. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
What's the most bizarre client request you have managed to fulfill?
Make a birthday card for my daughter.
That happened actually?
Very recently, actually.
Wow.
And the call came directly to me as the co-founder. Like I have like 500 other people, but they're like, "Can you please? My daughter's birthday this weekend. Can you please design a birthday card?"
And that happened.
Yeah, that happened.
Right.
We fulfilled it because of a very important client. So yeah.
Okay. What's the hidden talent of yours that would surprise people?
I could speak backwards as a kid, so I can like.
Can we still do it?
ZYX, WVU, TSR, QP, ONM, LKJ, GFE, DCBA.
That's impressive. Yeah, that's impressive.
I could spell. I could like speak sentences backwards. Yeah.
Okay.
Crazy.
What did you want to become growing up as a kid?
An entrepreneur. I didn't know what, but I always knew I want to be an entrepreneur like my father.
Like you wanted to have control over your life.
Yeah. Basically. Like I didn't know what it was. It could be literally anything, but I was like, I want to be an entrepreneur. And I didn't know how to spell entrepreneur, but I'd heard the word entrepreneur and like, this is a very cool word. Let me say it. I should tell all my friends, I want to be an entrepreneur.
Right.
Couldn't spell the word entrepreneur, but yeah, that was my aspiration growing up. Yeah.
Okay. Most underutilized marketing channel right now?
I think LinkedIn.
Yeah. Okay. If you could master one new skill this year, what would it be?
Money management.
Like personally or at a macro level?
Personally as well, but also at a macro level. But I think personally more for myself. Just there's so much to learn nowadays. I think also in the finance space overall, so many more instruments to diversify money into. Like I'm keen on learning how to invest in real estate as well. I think that's something very that's always eluded me. I'm keen on learning something about how to invest in real estate. Yeah.
Okay. Last few questions. A funny life lesson you learned?
I mean, don't blindly trust everyone around you.
Okay. Do you want to retire early? And if so, why?
Yeah, I do want to. My target age is 43 to 44, so I have
So
given
you are very
myself,
well in the fire movement.
yeah, like
Okay.
I'm 10 years away from that is
Hmm.
my plan of action, as I was mentioning, right? Why? Because I want to spend time in nature.
Hmm.
I don't want to be in front of laptops and digital devices. I want to spend time, away from the hustle and
Hmm.
the city life that I'm currently in.
Hmm.
I love Bombay, of course, but I'd rather be in nature with animals
Right.
and trees.
And about that,
Yeah.
lastly, what does financial freedom mean for you?
That I can wake up every morning not worrying about, what next, or like, can I do this or can I do that? Like, I think I have the freedom of just waking up and say, okay, fine, today I want to live the life the way I want to live it. And I think that
Hmm.
gives me the financial freedom. Yeah.
Right.
Mm.
So it's basically not being told what to do, even by
Yeah.
clients. Right.
Yeah. I mean, eventually you're servicing the clients, you have to do what the client
Hmm.
tells you,
Yeah.
but it's not fretting over saying, how will I survive tomorrow?
Hmm.
Like, I
Hmm.
think that for me is financial freedom in the limited means I have. It's not like I'm sitting on like pots of money, but I'm just like
Hmm.
saying that it's in my limited means. I know I'm financially free enough to know that if I have to wake up tomorrow and something has to go wrong, like I will survive. That for me is my freedom. Yeah.
I think you're a bit too humble, but yeah, I get what you're trying to say. Well, I think yeah, that was pretty much it. Uh, every time I talk to you, I think I unlock layer two thinking. So it's pretty nice talking to you every time.
Thanks.
Thank you so much, Akshay, for
Thanks
doing
for
this.
having me. Thank you
It
so
was a
much.
pretty good conversation.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Thank
Thanks.
you.
Thank you.